Hello, everyone, and welcome to the show that's name does not make sense, even if you think about it. I am Bradley, Mr. Headache here, and I used to be an aspiring zoomorph main until the fog took me. And as always, I am joined by my lovely co-host, Levi, Ghost Anonymous.
Hey,
Hi.
folks. Hello.
If you are unaware, Levi and I used to be aspiring Dead by Daylight streamers until the entity decided to put an end to that. Thank you for that. Now we are locked in the confines of Greenville's theater, where we must run a dinky late-night talk show where we farm the emotions of not only our guests, but you, the viewing audience at home. Thank you for your participation. Plenty of times, iconic Dead by Daylight personalities go awry, and they need to get something off their chest. A perk rubbing you the wrong way and you want to complain about it? Late Night by Daylight. Recent update got you down, you just gotta let somebody know? Late Night by Daylight. Just want to complain for no reason at all? Well, you know what comes next.
Late Night by Daylight.
I just made you do that by yourself to feel awkward.
I know.
How's that
It's
feel?
okay. It's fine. I'll do some things by myself. I'm not afraid. You don't got nothing on me.
Oh, man. How are you today, Levi?
I'm doing really good. I feel quite refreshed. I'm deeply saddened that Halloween's over, but it's been good. It's been good. I just got back from a break from Dead by Daylight, so minus some like your typical frustrations, I've been enjoying the game.
Was that purposeful to take a break? Like you've been having burnout, or was it just like vacation time?
No, so originally my sister was gonna fly out. That got trounced, and then I was dealing with a lot of that burnout from before, which I had mostly solved, but I still think taking a clean break and just getting away from it was probably a good idea, and it just coincided perfectly. So my partner had already had the vacation time, so yeah, we just decided we'd just go on it. It was a perfect break. I decided I was not going to go on Twitter. I wasn't going to answer like
Good call.
anything. I failed like twice. The day I left, I'm driving down to New Orleans, and I'm getting posts like, hey, they just announced Chucky is getting changed. And I immediately got like maybe 20 DMs like, hey, did you see this? What do you think about it? What do you think of this? Have you noticed?
You know,
Like,
the most like loaded question possible, because like, how do you comment on changes that don't exist yet? They just have been, hey, it will change. How do you comment on, yeah, it's happening, and that's it? That's all you have.
Yeah, I think a lot of people are expecting me to have like a really good idea of what the changes would be. Obviously, a lot of people asking like, what do you think of the change? Like, what changes do you think they'll make? What changes do you want? Blah blah. But like, yeah, it was interesting. So that made it hard, and I definitely was interested. So I was kind of peeping Twitter more than I probably should have. But it was a great. We went to the French Quarter. We visited a lot of like haunted sites. Did some ghost tours, ghost hunting, like phasmophobia type things.
Woo.
Yeah, it was really good. Lots of good food. It was a fun time.
This is gonna be really funny because depending how long it takes me to edit this episode, those changes might already be out. So I guess I'll leave a pinned comment with how we might feel about them.
Depending on, I think they don't get announced tomorrow, but the day after. So hopefully,
Chop, Brand, get to it.
yeah. You got like 48-hour turnaround. You got this.
These things. I don't know if I can do that. I don't work miracles. Even with the entity's power, I cannot work miracles. So
we'll get you a perk for it or something. We'll balance it out with perks. That's always the end.
I guess so. Perk overworked and underpaid. That's base kit for human beings.
Yeah,
apparently.
they made that base kit years ago.
Gosh. Anyways, well, we do have a guest tonight. We do have guests frequently now. That's kind of the point of a talk show, is to have guests.
The show's like working. It's crazy.
Oh.
Rough pilot, though. Rough pilot, but we're getting there.
Pilot, where are we flying?
Only downward, and we don't need a pilot for that.
It's only down from here.
Yeah.
All right, well, we do have other segments to get to, so the show must go on. But first, like always, we have Word of the Day from Eric the Crow. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to this episode's edition of Word of the Day with Eric the Crow. Well, Eric, we had a little bit of a rough bit last episode. You were a little more cranky than usual. Are you feeling any better today? Yeah, but you were, like, extra angry last episode. Any reason for that? Okay, well, like, that makes sense. But, like, you know, I'm stuck here too, right? I have loved ones that I would love to see again, but instead I'm stuck here. So we're both stuck together. So we're in this together, little man. You'll tolerate me Oh, you know what? You know what? That's fine. I can work with that. Anyways, I do believe you have the word of the day for us, do you not? Ah, that's a good one. Slugging. What does slugging mean, Eric? Slugging is the action of foregoing hooking and choosing to leave a down survivor on the ground in order to pressure something else inside the match. You always pick the controversial ones, don't you? Well, I've been yelled at for this one quite a bit. So, I must ask my usual questions. So, is slugging bad if there are multiple people around? See, that's what I thought. If there's multiple survivors around, why not chase them? Okay. Next question. If I slug a survivor and the survivor crawls away, am I bad for not finding them? No? You mean to say if they didn't want to bleed out, they shouldn't have crawled away? Wow, that's wild. Yes, you are right about that, though, Eric. If you slug somebody out for a full 4 minutes unprovoked, yeah, that is bad. Honestly, he said something way worse, but like, I don't want to get demonetized, so. Isn't this usually the part where you like fly up into the ceiling, you know, so we can like do the rest of the show? You don't feel like it today. Okay, I mean, guess, I'll just leave then. See ya. All right, with that out of the way, it's finally time to introduce our guest for this evening. Tonight's guest is a little bit of a switch up here, as we're interviewing someone who used to be a Dead by Daylight streamer, but has quit the game besides the odd match or two here and there, and that being one of my closest friends, the other brand to my brand, ResidentBran.
Hi.
All right. How would you introduce yourself? How would you introduce yourself to someone who did not know you? Like, what would you say to them?
Did not know me in context of when I was more active streaming or now?
Like, just if somebody was like, hey, who are you in the DBD landscape? Like, if you're online in somebody's chat, somebody's like, who are you? What would you tell them?
Sure. I would tell them that I got into streaming around COVID, and I flip-flopped through various things, and I eventually landed on Dead by Daylight as something to do for every stream, and it just made sense because there was a networking opportunity there, right? You meet other people and other content creators, and there's a bit of a Venn diagram there, and they share audiences, and you get to kind of mingle with other people. It's actually really good for growth, I think, in that aspect, at least short-term growth. And I kind of rode that wave for a little bit, and I was never, partnered or anything like that, but it was a fun time, and I had numbers that were not nothing, and I had a fantastic, wonderful community. And playing Dead by Daylight for me was interesting because it was less about the game and more about just having something on the screen for people to look at while I just chatted with people, and that was kind of what I tried to present to the stream.
Yeah, which is very, very, very lovely. Before we get too carried away, what pronouns would you prefer to go by today?
He, him, they. All fine. He, him is fine.
Excellent. And I'm assuming because you kind of exited the content creation space that you don't have anything for this, but if anything, would you like to promote something today?
A little surprise for you. I was going to start streaming Friday nights, 12 a.m. Eastern.
Let's go.
Oh, no!
So I don't know what those are going to look like, but
I remember you doing that
happen.
goblin maid cleaning game or whatever that was, and I walked in. It was like a one-up.
That sounds so interesting.
And that yeah, it was crazy. It was like House Flipper, but it was like a dungeon, like a supervillain's dungeon, and you had to just clean up after the mess of some like adventurers going in there and falling into traps. It was weird. I don't know exactly what streams are going to look like and if it's going to be that, but I'm kind of forcing myself to do it again.
I'd be happy to have it. The whole point of Late Night by Daylight is like we like to offer this space as a space to vent about anything that's been on your mind in the fog, whether it be the game, the community, etc. If there's any discussion of like other content creators, if you're gonna not make it positive, just omit it, just make it anonymous. Usually this is the part where I ask, what's on your mind? But as somebody who's exited the Dead by Daylight community and streaming, I think it's pretty obvious the main reason we brought you on is I believe you have a unique perspective as someone who has like successfully quit the game, because I know that's something that a lot of people have trouble with, especially streamers. They get burnout and they have immense trouble quitting. So I feel that a good starting question for us with that process is, what was the first sign where you realize like, hey, this is it for me and I don't think I can do this long term?
Yeah, it was a combination of things. It was a lot of life stuff too. I remember my apartment burned down, so I kind of lost my stream setup for a bit.
He's not kidding, by the way.
That's terrifying.
I lost like a 9-year relationship. I was homeless for a little bit. My apartment burned down when I got one, and it was just like streaming was so at the bottom of my priority list. So that was a huge factor. And a result of all of that also had me look back on what I was streaming, and it kind of had me question, is this the right direction to go? Like, if I want to keep doing this, do I want to play this one game for the rest of whatever, this hobby continues to be? And that line of thinking sort of led me to where I was like, I'm gonna focus on other things for right now. And you had asked like when that started to kick in, and I think with Dead by Daylight, it's kind of something that leaks in very early. Right off the bat, you're always going to encounter people who are just very negative. It's like walking into a room and everyone around you is a hardened veteran that has like bullet wounds and knife scars, and you're fresh faced and new, and you're like, I'm just trying to have a good time. I don't know why everyone is being so upset all the time. So you get a sense of that early, but I come from a more competitive environment when it comes to games, so if you have that edge to you, you can kind of just shrug it off. But I think a lot of people have trouble with that as well.
Yeah, definitely. Very much, definitely. We've talked about that before, you and I specifically, because we came from the fighting game community before Dead by Daylight. So we're used to like the thrill of competition and things being hard, or the skill curve to a lot of things being very difficult to react and understand, which is, for a lot of, to put it in kind of put this away that's like nice and kind and understanding, but it's kind of like Fisher Price's first competitive game. It's like it's competitive enough and there's enough skill expression that there is competition to it, but it's still fairly easy compared to like MOBAs, compared to like fighting games. So a lot of people don't have that kind of like, for lack of a better term, good sportsmanship and the emotional capacity to handle the things that the game offloads onto you.
Yeah. I theorize that a lot of people who find their way into Dead by Daylight are, I don't want to say not competitive at other things, but maybe they don't have the drive to improve too much, or they don't want to put that effort and that work into getting really good at something that's a little more, twitch reflex heavy, or requires a lot of things like that. And I think Dead by Daylight, with its kind of low floor, allows you to be really good really fast. And I think not only does that feed into that attitude of I should be winning all the time because I win a lot of the time, but it also kind of creates a really toxic mindset from the get-go. I know my first killer game ever was a 4K, and I just rode that high forever because your first few matches you're getting matched with actual babies. And I think it sets you up to feel like, okay, this is going to be, I'm going to win a lot. And it should, because it's at its heart a party game, right? You should be having a fun time and winning a lot, ideally. But for competitive stuff, if you have an 80% win rate, that shouldn't exist.
Yeah, DBD, it does seem like has like kind of that bait and switch where it's like, hey, come enjoy this fun party game, and then like slowly before you know it, you're almost playing a completely different game that you hadn't thought you signed up for. Yeah, that's
my good friend for Halloween did a stream recently, like a week ago, and he had played some Dead by Daylight, and he hadn't played in like 2 years, and he never played it to that level of being like intensely competitive, quote unquote. And it was so fun and refreshing to see someone immerse as a survivor and be scared and genuinely like hear the heart rate and be like, oh my god, oh my god, oh my god. Like that's what kind of, I think, drew all of us into it. And it's really nice to see someone not just be concerned about min-maxing and what the meta is and oh, this killer's so busted and this survivor's so stupid. It's nice to see someone just play it and have fun, you know?
Yeah, I was just watching a content creator, and they're doing a project. So they're playing on a blank account. They're playing like a baby. I'll ask Bran if we can edit if they want to or not. But it was funny. The Claudette had made it to the end game. But literally, when looked at the profile, 2 hours. They'd been playing the game for 2 hours. The door was open and the hatch was in front of them, and they had no idea what to do. They were crouching, hiding. The killer was nowhere around, and they died to the timer in the end game clock. Because they didn't even know to go out the door, the hatch. It was both parts sad and heartbreaking, but adorable.
It's also kind of awesome.
Yeah, it's a different world. It's really interesting. It was so wholesome. I think it's easy to forget that there's those different worlds in DBD.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's one of those things. It's almost like lightning in the bottle, because once it's gone, you can't catch it again. Like it literally, like it does. I feel like I like the way Levi described it. It really is a switch up. Like it does start off as a happy, funny, like party Halloween game, but you will hit a plateau where you can't just kind of like hang out in the game. If you want to succeed all the time, like if you always want to get out or always have at least a chance of winning, you can't just kind of like coast. Like you have to put in that work, and that's usually the make it or break it for a lot of people staying with the game or quitting it.
Yeah, definitely. So you said you had built up a community that you seem really happy about. You talked about it really fondly, and you said you had a viewership to mention. Was that difficult to walk away from? I know you obviously had a lot going on in life, and you talked about like making the decision, but was it difficult? Like, did you think about it afterwards?
Yeah, for sure. I think about it all the time. Everyone was so kind and so sweet, and that's my main driving force for, you know, wanting to dip my toes back into it with whatever schedule I can make work, because everyone is super, super friendly and super kind. And it was weird in my case because I didn't always exclusively play Dead by Daylight. I would, you know, it would be a 1 day a week thing. Sometimes it would be once in a while. Sometimes I would play it all 3 days a week. So I had this weird split of like half of these people that were there for, you know, more variety content, and then half of these people that were there for exclusively Dead by Daylight. And then, you know, some of those would mix and cross contaminate. But for the most part, you know, it's the non-DBD people that were really always there to support no matter what I did, which was super appreciative. So yeah, of course, yeah, I always think about those people, and I do hope to come back, because I didn't just walk away because the Dead by Daylight community was intense for me. I would have just done other things, but as a content creator, I think Dead by Daylight is probably in the rearview mirror for the most part for me. That's just something I would play on my own time.
We're going.
I think it's like one of those things where like I see this brought up a lot in conversations surrounding Dead by Daylight, especially when it comes to content creators, is like wanting, like, what if you just don't enjoy the game, just quit. Which there is that mentality of like, if you're having a bad time constantly, you should definitely, you know, quit the game or slowly phase out the game, which is kind of like the theme of this episode. But at the same time, like, just playing the game every once in a while is how most people play video games. They work their 9 to 5, they come home, they play for like an hour or two, and then they're like, okay, well, that was fun, but I still have my Silent Hill 2 remake playthrough, so I'm going to play that tomorrow. And then my friend and I are doing a Baldur's Gate playthrough, so I'm doing that on Thursday. And then you'll play DBD like at the beginning of next week again. You know, it's like, it's not like an everyday thing for like 6 to 8 hours for most people. That's a lot.
Yeah.
So to expect people to enjoy it for that much time is wild.
Yeah,
extremely. Yeah, it's super intense. You know, it's almost too much. It's just, you're just breathing in these fumes constantly, and you know, people are complaining, and you're right. It's hard for people to kind of step away from that. It's I defend behavior for a lot of things. I actually think they get a little too much slack. They're doing their best in a lot of ways, but I also believe that they've created this game in a very addictive, free-to-play way, except it costs money.
Yep.
And that does create really unhealthy behaviors, and it does create really unhealthy, this desire. I got to get more blood points. I got to prestige everything. I got to make sure that, if I buy this killer, they'll be ready to go by the time they come out. And it's like most things, you buy the thing and you can play the thing, but Dead by Daylight, that's not the case. You have to put a lot of effort and work into actually getting to put a build on that killer that might be efficient or useful. And that is a gripe that I have with that company. I wish that, to either make it free to play or allow a little more accessibility in getting to use everything that isn't just in custom matches. I see a lot of negative. What's the word? A lot of negative. Constant people just beating themselves up. I've seen in your Discord even, Bran, people who approach it in almost a genuinely addictive way, like almost like someone dealing with alcoholism or a drug addiction. And it that seems dramatic on the surface, but I've seen people genuinely sit there and go, I can't step away from this game because I'll get worse at it. So I have to push through it, but I'm miserable pushing through it. I don't know what to do. And it's like, obviously therapy is something that's easy to recommend. But not everyone has access to therapy. So it's tricky. It's sad, and I hate to see that happen to people. I mean, it should be easy to kind of step away for a little bit. You shouldn't feel chained to the game in that way.
Yeah, you absolutely shouldn't. And I feel like what would be really helpful when we get back from this commercial break is that I want you to kind of lay out, because you, like we talked about at the beginning of this, exited that, and you did it pretty cleanly, and I think that's really admirable, and I feel like there's a lot to take away from that that's extremely positive. But we got to keep the lights on because the entity doesn't pay for it, so we will see you after these commercial messages.
Are your games more frustrating and difficult than you would like? Are you dealing with constant flashlight spam, teabagging, and pallet stuns? Do your endgames look like this? Well, they don't have to any longer. Come join us where they film Late Night by Daylight. Yes, right in this theater. Come on in through the front entrance. Maybe say hi to the hosts while you're here, and then take a quick little stroll over to the arcade. This is Ghost's Arcade, where he has many amenities for you to practice your killing tips. Yeah, come on, use them at any time. Practice on live servers or with AI bots. And get your games and survivors looking more like this. You too can achieve these results by using Ghost's Pro Killer Tips for more consistent wins. Established that sometimes using we're not quite sure if it's runtime is a big man of our imagination.
Yes, this makes perfect sense. Oh, hello. Didn't see you enter. So I've heard you want to be killer at being a killer, man. Well, I've got some helpful for you and not so helpful for your opponent tips that might help you take your slaughter to the next level. And yes, I can't read. At Loops, are you not making it there right before they get to the pallet? Are they dropping it just moments before you're able to put your sweet sultry knife in their side? You may not be looping correctly or efficiently. If you find yourself in this situation, what I suggest you do is you start taking that knife and you start cutting some corners. Now, if you find yourself following behind a survivor, looping around an obstacle, and you're simply focused on just keeping track of where they're going, and you find yourself looping wide, you're not doing it right. Now, what I need you to do is I want you to smack against that obstacle and hug it tighter than you would your father after 40 years of neglect. No, I'm not crying. You're crying. No, you're gonna hug it tight. And the reason for this is survivors have a slightly smaller hitbox, letting them get around an obstacle just slightly more efficiently than you as the killer. So if we're looping wide, we're making this problem for us even more of a pain in the ass. And that's the last thing we need is more pains in the ass. We already got 4 each match. Now, be wary, because if you're looping too tight, sometimes you can snag on some protruding environment. Now, Each map is pretty regular with where the environment protrudes, and you'll get better at it as time goes. So just be careful, but try to loop as closely to the obstacle as you can, and it'll sometimes reward you with hits you wouldn't normally get, or even let you get hits even quicker than normal. And we all know that time management is a big thing in the killer game. Remember, match time is gen time.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to our lovely talk show segment in Late Night by Daylight. We are still here with ResidentBran, one of my closest friends, and we have been having some very fruitful and lovely discussions about burnout with the game and how to break away from not only burnout, but just having an unhealthy relationship with the game and how to get out of that space. Because that's something that not only DBD streamers struggle with, but a lot of DBD players struggle with. Sticking to the game long past the point that it's healthy and makes them happy. And I know you have a very, very smart and wise brain when it comes to emotions and feelings. So what do you believe are steps that are healthy for somebody who is in that position where they are playing the game past the point that they're clearly not enjoying it and they're burnout, whether that be through streaming or playing the game in general? That would be a healthy way to break away from the game.
Sure. I think first and foremost, it's so important to remember that you're playing this because it's a hobby, right? This is your time to step away from the stress of the world around us and actually engage in something that, yes, it's escapism, but that's the point of it, right? Is we're kind of taking away that stress and we're just engaging in a little escapism for a couple hours. And I think that's super important, is to remember why you're doing that. And if you're not getting that from it, I think you need to reassess maybe why. And if you can't figure out why, maybe just take a break or try to see things in a different light. As I was saying earlier, it's very easy to win in Dead by Daylight. I think win rates are absolutely absurd. And as a result, losses can feel extra bad. But I think it's important to remember that it's okay to lose. It's not that serious. You're still, the game should be about the experience that you're having in the match. Have some fun with it. Try not to get too beat up if you die. I think honestly, major important thing for me. I would recommend this to anyone playing Survivor specifically, but even Killer, it's not that serious for me, so I'll do it anyway. But I kind of view Dead by Daylight as a sort of twofold entertainment thing. If I'm playing Dead by Daylight, I will almost always have something else going on, be it a YouTube video or show, or hanging out with a friend, or listening to music. I think it's super important to have that, because a lot of Dead by Daylight does end up resulting in just sitting there doing nothing, and that gives you time to sit there and feel more and more poorly about the fact that you're sitting there doing nothing. But if you have something else to engage yourself with, I'll sit on hook for 2 minutes. I don't care. I'm watching something else. If I die, I'll just go next and I'll wait in queue because I'm watching something else. I think it's really important to not just absorb that game. And I think that's what helps streamers a lot, is because you have chat and you're interacting with chat and you're talking about other things and you're talking through what you're doing, and you're constantly engaging in more than just one thing. If you're sitting on hook and you're a streamer, you have chat. You just hang out with chat. It's such a huge help. I think it's not the type of game that's made for you to just sit there, because if you're sitting there on hook just staring at your screen, of course it's infuriating. Of course that sucks. Or you're going to think of a million reasons why you shouldn't be there and how the game designers are at fault for it.
Yeah, all of a sudden it's not so much escapism as like making you think about things.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
you're just sitting in it. Exactly. It's tough, but I think age comes into factor too. I think a lot of younger people can get a little more wrapped up in these things. That's just something that it might just come with going through life. I know it's really hard for streamers to pull themselves out of this stuff because it's a source of income, and Dead by Daylight viewers are pretty adamant about just viewing Dead by Daylight for the most part.
Yep, absolutely.
So it's tough. I don't know who it was, but I saw a tweet recently where someone basically made a press conference about how they're no longer doing Dead by Daylight.
A press conference, interesting.
Yeah, it was a whole, when a video game developer really makes a really bad game and they have to put out like that white text on a black background about we're so sorry, we apologize.
Yep.
It was like that, but for no longer making Dead by Daylight content. And it was just like, that's so unfortunate. You should just be able to play whatever you want to play. But if you're not like the big ones up there, like, you know, Otstarva and such, you don't really have the flexibility to do that, because, you know, if your audience is under 100 average viewers, chances are a lot of those people are just there for the Dead by Daylight, and so it's tricky. It's tough to find that balance, and sometimes you just can't, and you might just have to figure out, you know, how much am I willing to lose on this income
So
for my own mental health.
So you've made a clean break, but you also say you did a pretty good job of streaming other games, and you've talked about how like streamers are kind of needing press conferences to cover the fact that
That's wild.
they may not being play. And I've seen it. I've even seen streamers that are like, "Hey, I'm a little burnt out. I'm gonna stop playing DBD for a few months, or like I'm gonna take a break," and it's like a big deal. And I've seen the community sometimes react pretty strongly to it. What are some steps, or do you have any advice for people that may, specifically streamers, that may want to maybe not just make a clean break even, but just like slowly move away from DBD only and stream some other things? And like, what advice would you have for those streamers to kind of break those chains and maybe stream other games? An option.
It could be super tricky, and I think that's going to vary from person to person. I'm a pretty open person. I've always sort of just, I'll put it all out there. I'll be very open with chat and with community and stuff. And so I'll just be open and say, hey, this game is not doing it for me right now. I'm just going to, you know, I'm going to play other things. Or I would just play other things and I would see the number be half of what it usually is, and I would just you know, deal with it. It doesn't feel good, but it is what it is. And you just got to, you know, at a certain point, it was a little bit of a symbiotic relationship, right? I was aware that I was engaging in this game, one, for fun, but also because it did provide these avenues of bringing in a little more viewers and having that those connections and a little bit of mingling with other community content creators. And so in that way, it's kind of like, yes, if I step away from kind of what brought me here, naturally those numbers are going to also kind of fade a little bit. But I think being open with the community, I don't know if you have to make a press conference like that, right? Maybe you have to, and maybe doing that allows more people to support you and to kind of jump in and say, hey, don't worry, we're gonna support you no matter what. I don't know how that translates. I think a lot of DBD viewers are also lurkers, so that number may dip regardless, but it's tricky, you know? A lot of people also like to just play Dead by Daylight while watching other people play Dead by Daylight, and all of their comments in chat are just talking about what they're doing in their game and not really watching what you're doing. So it's kind of tricky to strike that balance. But I think if you're not getting anything out of it, and this is just for streaming in general, or anything you do in general, if you're not getting anything out of it, I think you should probably, at the very least, reassess your process. It's probably worth stepping away from it if you feel more negatively about it than you do positively, or even just throwing in a variety night or a variety hour, or just taking the last hour to kind of just vibe out and do whatever you would want to do. I think that's super important. You shouldn't feel, like I said earlier, chained to the game. You should feel like you have options if that's what you want to do. I know some people are super happy to play this game all the time, and that's awesome. And I would probably be too if there wasn't so many people just like constantly ragging on it and themselves, and it can become a lot to kind of just wade through.
I liked what you were touching on there, and I would really like to expand on specifically like logistically. This is something I asked Revi in the last stream too. Is like to go into like, you had mentioned a little bit about like, okay, well, there's a variety day, or like the last hour of my stream is something else. What are like some realistic things like that you can implement that aren't just I'm quitting tomorrow and that's it? What are some like little ways you can kind of like ease into it from your perspective?
Yeah, I know from my perspective, you know, I would throw in like a card game like Marvel Snap is probably great for something like that. Something else that is kind of match based. If you're kind of gonna do something linear, try and find something where you can like throw an hour in there and successfully do it. I even hit a point when I was streaming where an hour or two of my stream was just chatting and just hanging out and talking with stream and playing music. And you know, if you have the community that's cool with that, there's nothing wrong with going in that direction either. I think there's a lot of ways to tackle it, but it is definitely down to you know, what you're interested in and what you want to explore and what you want to do. And just being open, and even if it's like, hey, we're gonna do like Jackbox games or something, you know, like something that the chat can get into and actually participate in and be a part of. I think that helps rip the Band-Aid off a little bit too. Yeah, I feel like that, you know, there's more than one way to skin a pig in this scenario.
She's been
It's
there.
tricky, right? I don't even know what the state of the game is these days. I'm so lost.
I mean, the state of the game of Dead by Daylight, if I've come to learn anything about the community, is it's always worse than what people say, and it's not as great as some people pretend it is at the same time.
Oddly enough, if you went back to it, it probably looks very similar to how when you left. Oddly enough, you'll probably see the exact same perks right now. It's a weird place. It's
Yeah,
On
I've been
back
dipping my toes in. I played a couple of Vecna games the other day, and I've been doing some Survivor games here and there. And I'm just super lost. I saw Petimento's relevant, and that was weird. There's a lot of weird
Yeah.
stuff. Yeah, that was like a fun perk when I left.
Yeah, because they took off the top
Just something you
of
throw on because you want to run around.
yeah, they took off the top of a lot of the normal slowdown that people were used to running. So either in big ways or small ways, they kind of like have like edged out the old slowdowns. Like they're still prevalent, right? Like people still run Painter's Pop all the time, but they are less potent. So people have been trying to find workarounds like leverage Gift of Pain or Penimento plaything, stuff like that.
Yeah.
I think one of the big
Makes sense.
things
And-
that
and I do want to confirm with all of. Oh, sorry.
you can go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say I want to throw it in there that I don't believe this is just a Dead by Daylight problem, right? I saw the other day someone was like, "Oh, I playing Overwatch. I don't know why I hate stupid games," and it's like, I think I responded like, I think it's kind of fun, and then all of a sudden they're talking about how who they main and that they love the game. I think it's just popular to hate on things because that's just kind of what's popular now, and to be really negative about stuff. But I think what gets me the most about Dead by Daylight is just comparing, you know, the millions of players of League of Legends to like the 40,000 to 80,000 players of Dead by Daylight, and it's just like it just feels more intense, you know.
Yeah, it almost feels more intense because of that, because your voice carries further, you know. Like it's so weird. Like Levi and I will be like playing a game of Dead by Daylight, and wouldn't somebody be like, "Oh, I know you," I'm like, "What? Wait, what do you mean? I'm just a little guy playing games. What do you mean?" But because there's not as many people, your voice carries further, you know.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, no, I see that all the time on your stream. Genuinely, people from YouTube come over a lot.
Yeah, and
And
this is
people
where
in
this is
your,
happening
uh,
right
your-
now. Hello, everyone.
Yeah, I started playing again on PlayStation 5 specifically to not have an in-game chat because I think that alone is gonna up my enjoyment by like 20%. Just in
Smart.
itself.
Yeah, this is a question I really think is important to a lot of people, especially streaming DBD. Is a lot of the time like the game can be frustrating, but like the community also, and it's like you were talking about, like the constant negativity and volatility of everyone can be very hard to deal with, like with the in-game chat and stuff like that. What would your advice be to someone who loves the game, but the community is kind of the hang-up?
Yeah, it's tricky. Like I said, I'm trying to just avoid it altogether by paying the controller tax and going over to the PlayStation to console. It can be really difficult, right? Especially when you're going into streams and doing, you know, like you do Survivor Fridays. I always see people constantly just having a bad time and just talking about, you know, glad I hopped on tonight. Oh, great. And it's like, well, then don't, you know, I don't, it sounds easier to do or easier said than done, but that's really what it comes down to. You know, if you're not prepared to sit on a hook for 2 full games, I would say don't jump in, right? Like you just have to know that that's a part of this game and you have to be prepared for that.
You have to
You
find.
might get tunneled out.
Oh, go on.
No, I'm just going to continue. You might get tunneled out. You might get camped. I mean, I don't think you can do that anymore, right?
You can, but it's really difficult because it's basically just proxy camping. Hard camping isn't really a thing anymore.
Right. But regardless, like there's a good chance you're going to do nothing, and that's okay. You just have to be prepared to do nothing and enjoy the time that you're having hanging out with your, the streamer that you like or your friends. And I think that's really important is, understand that things might not go your way. And if you understand that things might not go your way and you're happy with that and you can handle that, jump right in. You can have a good time. You can't really sit there and be like, this is the worst. I don't know why I did this. If you know why you did this, right?
Yeah, for sure.
I feel like one of the cool things you touched on earlier that I liked a lot was like, talking about like having a good relationship and like therapy and stuff like that. I think it's just general good life advice and to know your limits and accept what those limits are. Just because like we brought up odds can play the game all the time and have a good time like every day doesn't mean that's your experience. And if that's like your experience, you deal with it, right? Because there's a lot of like that like I was saying, that carries a lot over into like having good mental health is going like lamenting a lot of things you wish were different, but accepting what the tools you have to work with are and doing your best, and that's the best you can do, and really trying to make the most out of that instead of the I just don't have a better word, the lamentation of it all the time,
Yeah, no. Even the most healthy
Absolutely.
relationships, you need a little bit of time apart,
Yeah, 100%. And I'm gonna kind of segue off of that, and I'm gonna bring up a YouTube channel called Healthy Gamer GG, and they have a lot of really awesome resources and techniques for this very topic, playing video games and not letting them get to you and maintaining a healthy relationship with them. I think that's a nice resource to have if you can't make those. I know therapy is not readily available for every person. We're getting
Very
a little
expensive.
better at it, but we're not quite there yet. Yes. So there are resources out there to at least kind of help mitigate that.
Yeah, absolutely. Very, very good. Very, very fruitful and lovely conversation. And that's why I'd love to have you on, because I know you think about the deeper things, not just the game itself, but like how it affects you, how it hurts your brain or helps your brain sometimes. So that's why I've loved this conversation so far. But we do have, unfortunately, to cut to another commercial break. So we will be right back in a moment. Don't go anywhere. Hello, friends. Welcome to our wonderful in-between segments in our lovely show of Late Night by Daylight. Today, we're going to be doing a different one. Today, we're going to be doing similarities. If you guys have watched Whose Line Is It Anyway, it's probably the most... Scenes from a Hat would be probably the most applicable thing to this, but we're going to come up with a bunch of different funny things that have similarities from Dead by Daylight to real-life situations. So, let's go ahead and get into it.
Things you can say on Hook with your girlfriend.
Things you can say on Hook and with your girlfriend. I don't want to touch that. You go first.
When are you gonna get me off?
Are you sure you would say that one, or would that just get you in trouble?
Oh yeah, no, that'd get me in trouble. It doesn't say things you can say on Hook and with your girlfriend and not get in trouble. It does not say that.
I guess that is true. Let's see. Things you can say on Hook and with your girlfriend. Get this thing out of me.
Rough.
Okay. Let's see. Things you can say in a Swift and at Thanksgiving dinner.
This is better together.
Oh, that's wholesome.
See, it's not all downhill.
Oh, that's wholesome. I like that. I mean, I don't even know how to follow that. That was just like, oh my gosh. I'm tired of babysitting these people, because you know what? Every single Thanksgiving for a long time, I was the designated babysitter. Like, I just people would bring their kids and they're just like, okay, well, you watch them while we watch the football game or while we cook. And I'd be like, okay, thanks. Like, I'm tired of babysitting these people.
Yeah. Meg's weird. She's just over there crouching in the corner.
Okay. Next one. Things you can say while playing killer and while at work.
If
you work in retail, you can say, we're slashing these prices.
Yeah. If you're, yeah, if you want to stick with the retail, these pallets are killing me.
These pallets are killing me. I wish I was forklift certified.
That's an OSHA violation.
OSHA, there's not an ocean, man.
Can you-
All right, and for our last one, things you can say in bed with your partner and the DBD store, so in the store where you buy things.
Wow, this was expensive.
Are you sure that's your partner or someone else?
I'm gonna regret this.
I'm gonna regret this purchase. This looked better in the picture.
Rough.
Oh man, that was good. That was good.
Yeah,
Good
was
crash
good.
course. Good crash course. I think these will get better over time, but like right now we're just like two men with anxiety trying to make it through improv. So
Yeah, exactly. I love how you framed that. Exactly what it is too.
but not as bad as things go. So yeah, back to us. From us back to us.
And we're back. That was a fantastic ad. And typically, I know we haven't had you here before, but typically we like to end off on some positivity. Is there anything that you're thankful for from the community? I know you haven't been a part of Dead by Daylight in a while, but I know you have been. Is there something some note of positivity you just want to leave off on?
Yeah, of course. Despite a lot of negativity from multiple angles, I've managed to accidentally trip and fall into meeting some of the closest friends in my life as a result of experiencing that game. I could think of like 3 or 4 people, Bran included, Bran especially.
Yeah, Brand's
who are really just absolute close friends who I would take a bullet for in a second, and that's not something I've gotten from any other video game community for the most part. And so for all of its flaws, it does have elements of it that are worth exploring, and I don't know if that's the game or just the people that play the game and foster really cool communities, because there are some not so great ones out there, but in this particular instance I have managed to find some really great ones, and that I'm definitely thankful for. And I'm also thankful that it's something that gets horror out there. A surprising number of people that play Dead by Daylight, I think, are actually not even horror fans, surprisingly. And
Wild,
I think it's really, I know it's crazy, and I think it's really cool that they're starting to learn about all of these iconic killers and these iconic names, and maybe even explore the movies and kind of, it could be their gateway drug into the world of horror. We're going to see a lot of Five Nights at Freddy's fans being like,
Oh, yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Oh,
yes.
the Hellraiser.
Oh yeah, that's Hellraiser. Oh yeah, that's John Halloween over there.
From a movie
Jonathan
from the 80s?
Halloween.
That's like 100 years ago.
Oh yeah, it's coming. Get ready.
Awesome. Well, where can the audience find you again? I know you said you're starting to stream again. Do you have a handle that we can include or anything like that?
Sure, yeah. You could find me most often on Twitter at ResidentBran. Same name as the other Bran, with the resident in front of it. Twitch.tv/ResidentBran as well. I will be there Fridays at around 12 a.m. Eastern time. Doing what? I don't know, but we'll figure it out. Will it be Dead by Daylight? Probably not. But we'll see.
Hey, so many people are just like,
Hey.
well, that's not for me now.
Listen, if after this people are clamoring and saying, "Oh my God, we need this person to play Dead by Daylight once a week on Friday nights," I'll consider throwing away my values for it. But
This whole episode being about like, hey, if you're burnout or want to quit the game, how do you do that? How do you do that healthily? Oh yeah, I'll come back in a jiffy.
I mean, a break does wonders, right? I mean, I just don't. All that negativity just kind of rolls off me at this point, so it's fine.
Gosh, well,
Awesome.
thank you for being here. We appreciate it.
Yeah, it was a
course.
lovely discussion.
Super honored to be here. I really appreciate it. Really appreciate you having me on.
Okay, well, you don't have to go home, but you can't stay here. So goodbye, goodbye, goodbye. All right, well, it looks like we're reaching the end of our third episode here. I guess it's about that time. You know what time it is. It's time for us to check in with the entity and see how we perform today. Well, that's the same one we got last week, but I guess that's better than going down, I suppose.
Yeah. We got tons of time. Maybe at some point we'll have like it better. I can't come up with reasons or ways how, but maybe. It can't get worse.
I mean, if your expectations are low, there's only up you can go from there, I suppose. But I just don't want to be eviscerated into the void, you know?
Yeah, it's finally about to leave, and I hope it stays gone. I don't want to go back.
Although, honestly, recording this, it's the middle of November, and everybody's already on that Christmas all blue all the way early, so maybe staying in the entity's realm for a little bit longer would be very nice.
That's a good idea. Yeah, not ready to take snowballs to the face.
Well, thank you so much for coming out, everybody. Your love and support means a lot because our lives quite literally depend on it. Please save us from upsetting the entity again. We'd really appreciate it because the void sucks. It's just an endless nothingness where we both exist and don't exist at the same time. Eternal suffering.
Much
that wonderful
blue.
guess.
Too much blue.
Too much blue. Is there anything else from you, Levi?
Yeah. Hey, just because other people, like if you're playing in a Swift or even if you're killer, just because other people in the match decide to be a little aggressive, maybe even a little mean, it doesn't mean you need to partake. Sometimes you can be the better player. Just say, have a GG's, hope your next match goes better and move on. Sometimes instead of trying to change the negativity into positivity, it's better to just move on yourself.
You know, the day that you get corrupted and you fall to the dark side, we know we're lost because you always have something really wholesome to say at the end of these.
Yeah, once I get corrupted, I'm going to be in every endgame chat haunting it with salt. I will be called the Salt Miner. That'll be my killer identity.
You and like 340,000 other content creators.
Yeah.
Anyways, that's going to be it for today's episode, friends. Thank you so much for joining us, and I hope you have a lovely, wonderful night.